My name is Mark. This is the Path of Zen. Today's topic is radical Zen. So before I can really delve into what radical Zen is, we probably should first talk about what Zen is. And a lot of people, when they think of Zen, they think of serenity, they think of seated meditation, looking like a Buddha statue in the temple. They think of quietness, they think of focus of mind. And these are general stereotypical views of Zen, which I would call like the pedestrian Zen or the commoner Zen. And those, in fact, are just images of Zen. It would be very much like taking a picture of a Catholic church and saying that the church is Catholicism, but it's just an image of Catholicism, but in itself is not. So this is where Zen kind of falls into. There's a lot of image and iconery within Zen that people like to point to say, well, maybe that's Zen, maybe wearing robes is Zen, maybe being quiet and sitting like a Buddha statue and being, what they call mindfulness of oneself. Maybe that's Zen. But it's not really Zen. It's just an image. It's just what we would sometimes people like to call it. They'd like to say, well, I'm going to mimic what I think enlightened people are like, and then maybe one day I'll be enlightened. And this goes back to the old saying of fake it till you make it. And this is one of those, for a lack of a better word, boomerisms that has been out there for a very long time. This concept of make it till you or fake it till you make it, as in the fact that if you act in the way you want to be, you will become that way. Now, I'm sure you've heard this sort of philosophy before, especially in New Age, in the law of attraction, that basically says manifest your reality or be what you want to become. And this is this idea that we are God, that humans are gods. Humans are omniscient, that we have celestial powers that we can create and destroy through our very own minds, and that we can transform this reality around us to be something other than what it really is. And this, unfortunately, is taught in a lot of Zen centers as Zen. But it's not. It's just repackaged New Ageism in Asian themes. And you're going to see this. You go to any Zen center and you're going to see this. So when we start to look at what is Zen aiming at, and you start to notice that Zen is basically pointing to something that we all have. It's all with you right now, whether you believe it or not. And that is called the intuitive mind. And what is the intuitive mind? It's the mind that is already there, that is not dependent on scheming, plotting, and planning, and having one's little paradigms already worked out. And you will find this, that a lot of people out there have these little schemes. They have these plans in their head of what they're going to do, how they're going to react, and what is the overall end game. And you'll hear this. What is the end game? What is enlightenment? As if enlightenment's an end game. Because when somebody says that they're on the path for enlightenment, what they're kind of indicating is they have a scheme, they have this plot, they have this plan, and this plan ends with enlightenment. And that somehow this enlightenment is going to solve their problems, it's going to transform their world to become something other than is not what is now, but it's going to be something different than what is now, because what now sucks, and then enlightenment is going to make things better. This is what is taught in modern Zen centers. But is it Zen? No. Again, that is New Ageism warmed over in Asian packaging. People just simply shoved the entire New Age philosophy, this new thought, and they shoved it right into Zen, and they shoved it right into Buddhism, and they packaged it up all nice and neat in Asian robes and rakusus and garments, and sold it to you as Zen. But it's not Zen. It's just New Ageism. So again, we get back to what is Zen. And again, I tell you, it's the intuitive mind. It's when you are completely have abandoned all of your plotting, all of your scheming, all of your plans, all of your, life destinations and this fake it till you make it. Because once you abandon all of those things and you realize you are already there. You are already enlightened. And the only thing that's preventing this enlightenment is all this plotting and scheming and planning and all this ideas that, if I do this and I do this and I do this, if I sit 25 sessions, if I sit 360 hours of meditation, I'm going to be Buddha. Abandon that stuff. And that is Zen, my friends. It is just that dead simple, but it's one of the hardest things to do is abandoning one's own cherished notions, cherishing the little ring of power, cherishing the plotting and the scheming and all these ambitions. It's easy to say, abandon it, relinquish it, renounce it. It's super hard to do it. But that is the practice of Zen. So when somebody says, what's your practice? It's abandonment, relinquishment, and renouncing of all the plotting, the scheming, the planning, the cohorting, the plotting, the conspiracies, all of these. If I do A, B, and C, I'll get C, I'll get D, X, Y, Z. Yeah. Good luck with the plotting. All it does is bring suffering. Good luck with the scheming. All it does is bring suffering. And you see a lot of people in Zen centers, they're plotting and scheming, and they're teaching you to plot and scheme. Plot this, plot that, be this way, be that way, sit like this, sit like a Buddha, walk silently, whisper all the time, whisper, because what Zen centers like to whisper now. They think that's the way to enlightenment. All of these ideas of what they think enlightenment is that they press onto you. And, there's this whole idea where I'm going to act like an ancient Zen monk, but not the ones that are historical, the ones that are in my mind that I just thought up. And you'll see the Roshis. I'm a Roshi. And I say this because my teacher Bada Bing said that. And when you really start to look at where is this coming from? It's all schemes and plots and wheels within wheels. And you start to realize these people don't have a clue of what they're talking about. Not a clue. So you go to a Zen center and you say, I want to learn Zen. And they say, okay, well, Zen is sitting on a zafu. Really? And then what? Just sitting on a zafu. It's the plotting, the scheming. It's the planning. It's the, if I sit on the zafu and they'll say, if you sit on the zafu and you go into the mind trance and then you call that Buddhahood, we say that that's being Buddha. And if you do it for long enough, we'll make you a practice teacher. We'll make you an officiant. We'll make you a lay teacher. Or the brand new one they got now is called the lay monk. Have you ever heard of anything more ridiculous as that, as the lay monk? Because in Buddhism, there is no such thing as the lay monk. It doesn't exist. There's bhikkhus, bukinis, and laymen. And that's it. Laymen come in male and female. Monks generally are male. Nuns are generally female. That's how that works. Laymen support the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, aka the monks and the nuns, who live outside of worldly ways. They don't have jobs, they don't have families, they are solely dedicated to striving to give up this scheming and plotting and this designed life. They don't get it. Is hard. Like I said, sometimes you just gotta break away from it all just to get to it. So this is what that's about. And there's no such thing as a lay monk. What is that? You're a layman living in worldly ways, or you're a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni who has abandoned worldly ways in life. And it is literally so radical break of a bhikkhu and bhikkhuni, it is hard to imagine for a commoner. Because you and I think, oh, well, I eat and I go watch TV and maybe I'll meditate. The life of a bhikkhu, they don't have. They've renounced everything. There is no, I'll just go watch TV when I'm bored, or I'll just go do this and that. They have completely given up their planning, their plotting, their scheming. They've given up everything, and they solely devote themselves to the Buddha's plan, because the Buddha laid out the life of a monk and nun, laid it right out. And they give up all of their plotting and scheming, and they choose that. And it has rules. There's the 227 rules of a bhikkhu. And I believe there's 238 for in the Chinese version of it. And there are Chinese bhikkhus out there. And it was out there for a very long time until the CCP of China took over and wiped them out. Japan had a very strong bhikkhu tradition up until about the 1860s, when the emperor eliminated Buddhism, outlawed it, and basically made Shinto the state religion. At that point in time, in the 1860s in Japan, the emperor basically just told the monks, he just said, hey, you're no longer monks. Buddhism is no longer the law of the land. All of you guys now go get married and raise families. That's what they did. And all the temples were turned into Shinto temples. Some of them eventually came back to Buddhism and Zen, but it's never been anything prior to what it was before the Meiji Reformation, or what happened in the 1860s. And in China, I don't even know what to say about that. Once the imperial, the West and the imperial armies invaded, and then, of course, the rise of the Japanese invasion, and then the rise of the CCP, Buddhism and any sort of monasticism in China has pretty much been eradicated. You still see it somewhat more in the southern parts, and Taiwan has a remnant of it. And you still see the bhikkhus and the bhikkhunis in the Zen traditions, or the Chan traditions in Taiwan, are very, very much observant to the rules. They would, anything like a lay monk, they would just laugh at, and they would just say, that's just gobbledygook. You could be a disciple of the Buddha, you could be a lay disciple. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that you got to understand that Zen is a very particular thing. It has nothing to do with culture or custom. I don't go to a Zen center to learn to be Japanese. There was no point in that. That's to sit there and say, oh, well, sitting Japanese style is enlightenment. Well, then every time I sat, I would be enlightened. That just doesn't make any sense. And, people would say, well, Japanese culture is based on enlightenment. And it's like, oh, really? The ones that brought you World War II and Pearl Harbor. Okay, I'm not quite sure if I buy all that, but it seems to be misleading as to what Zen is, because Zen is not a culture. Because if Zen was a culture, then why aren't we all just speaking Mandarin, or ancient Mandarin for that matter? But it's not the case. So Zen is not a culture. Zen is not a style. People try to say, well, Zen is a style. It's a style of serenity and peace and equality and inclusion. And And that's not true either. Zen is not any of that. Because if Zen was a style, then it can be codified. You would have people rated and ranked into how well they follow the style, and this would be very well known. You would have a book that would outline the style to the letter, but it doesn't exist. Never did exist, because Zen is not a style. People say, oh, well, Zen is a way of life. Well, again, you're getting into a style. You're getting into, they think it's a culture. They think it's acting like ancient Japanese monks, which, if I told you what an ancient Japanese monk was like, the people who think this, they go, oh, no, I don't want to be like that. Because it's nothing to do with what they think Zen is. So this gets into this idea, then we're getting into what's called radical Zen. And this radical Zen is this complete idea that Zen is a style. Zen is a culture. But then people say, well, it's not Japanese culture. No. Because that's too foreign and too out there. And also the Japanese are way too conservative and way too, just too conservative for Westerners. You go to Japan, you find it to be pretty stuffy and very conservative. And most Westerners would have a hard time with it. It's also very militaristic. There's a lot of order, and people follow the order. And it's, like I said, most Westerners find it intolerable. Westerners who have gone to the Rinzai-shu or the Soto-shu temples in Japan have found the militarism in the temples to be unbearable. I know now that the Soto-shu are running programs which we would call Soto-shu Light, which is basically learning how to be a Soto-shu priest without the heavy militarism that the Japanese would go through. You also find the same sort of view in what is left of I would say Chan in China. If you go to Korea and Vietnam and whatnot, you still see a lot of the militant. It's a very strict way of life, and they follow their rules. But they also include a lot of militant views in those particular ways of doing things. And the monks would literally line up and march around, and they march in and out of the zendo, and they do their meditations. But it's, again, these are not those people that call themselves monks in these countries. They're nothing like what we would call monks in the West. These people are solely living by the rules put down by the Buddha, through the sutras, the Pali-suttas, through the monastic orders of the bhikkhu. And anybody can go find those orders. They're out there on the internet. They're not secret. And most Westerners, when they look at the monastic orders of the bhikkhu, they're like, ooh, yeah, I'm not doing that. Because it's tough. Most people can't make it. Very, very hard. Very difficult. And most people will say, well, I don't want to do that. I just want to live in what I think is a serene life and what I think is the enlightenment way. And this is where we get into, again, radical Zen, because now we are getting into, if Zen is not what I told you earlier, the abandonment of all scheming and plotting and conniving and all the plots and the schemes and the little things that people cook up in their mind, and they think, oh, I'm going to do this and get X, Y, and Z, decide that they're going to plot their way to enlightenment, and they're going to adopt a culture that they think is enlightened. Oh, they're going to say, oh, well, I think acting very nice, and I'm going to have no opinions. I'm going to be politically accepting of everything except what I don't like. That's what it becomes. So you go into the Dharma centers, the Western Dharma centers, and it's a radicalized think tank of this idea of inclusion, that we're going to include everybody except the ones that they don't like. Now, I've asked these people before, which is, I said, is everybody truly welcome? And they're like, oh, everybody's going. And I'm going, so I could bring in white supremacists and neo-Nazis, and they'll all be welcome. They're like, well, except them. Oh, I see. So it's only the people that you like are welcome. So it's not inclusive. Now, what about diversity? And I'm like, okay, so I'm actually pretty liberal in my own mindset, which is, I believe in the Lotus Sutra that, there's 1,000 doors to Avalokiteshvara, and there's 1,000 doors to the path of enlightenment. It doesn't necessarily have to be what I say it is, but the path has particular characters, which one of them is the renouncement, the abandonment, and the relinquishment of cherished thoughts or of the scheming and plotting. However, when you find that the diversity is only pointing out that no, you have to adopt a particular cultural viewpoint, and it's the one that they set, this one of political obedience to an ideology, and it has to be their ideology, then it is not diverse. And then you get into equality, which, in my view, equality means that we all stand before the Buddha on our own merits and accords. And everybody has an equal opportunity to engage the path. As to if they engage the path or not, that I have nothing to do with that. That's their own karma. However, you go to a Dharma center and you start to realize, you're saying, okay, we're all equal here, except some are more equal than others. Because if they don't like you, and your views are not tolerated, well, then you're not equal. They will actually tell you that we're all equal except those people over there, those conservatives, those Republicans, those neo-Nazis and white supremacists. Those are not equal. They cannot be in the Dharma. They cannot know the way. So this whole playtime, this whole fantasy of radical Zen, which is built on diversity, inclusion, and equality, they shred that themselves because it is a false path. It is a false teaching. It is not Zen. It has nothing to do with Buddhism. It has nothing to do with Zen. You will never see in any sutra or sutta the Buddha talking about diversity, inclusion, or equality, because those are only creating of suffering. And the Buddha will tell you that those things create suffering. Abandon it, renounce it, relinquish it. That's the only path of Zen. Now, what in my mind is a Zen center? Why would such a place even exist? And it's the only reason it would be to exist would be to honor the teachings of the Buddha and the recognized Zen masters that are well known about, that have teaching the Zen path. Now, people claim, well, our lineage teaches this. And I would say that, well, a lineage is a school. A lineage is just a bunch of people who have formed a club, and within that club, they have their own ideas. Now, if the club ideas is this radical Zen, then that's just the club. And I would say that if I would happen to go out and meet somebody in these clubs, and I said, well, why don't you come to our club? And I found that it was Radical Zen, I would say, you know what, I think I'll go find a different club. Because if you're not honoring the Buddha, and if you're not honoring the great Zen teachers that came before us, and if you're not striving to at least walk the Zen path, or at least honor the Zen path, or at least honor those who are on the path, I'm sorry, I have no interest in your club. Now, there are those who will take offense to this because they put a lot of time and effort in their clubs. And I totally realize that. And it's something that, a lot of people will say, well, I spend a lot of time with my Zen club, and we have a teacher who was, affiliated with a bigger Zen club, and they gave him permission to start our small Zen club over here. So how is it that he's wrong, and why is he wrong? And my only point is, if the Zen teacher is not honoring the teachings of the Buddha and not honoring the authentic teachings of Zen, and is instead teaching radical Zen, which would be this plotting, this scheming, this conniving, all of this conspiracy that we're going to do something to go get enlightenment, and it's going to look like this. I just tell you, beware of such people, because they're out there, and they're out there plenty. And a lot of them, they will say these things, and they will teach things like this. But when you really start to push them, what they are teaching is not Zen. It is New Ageism repackaged up in Asian themes. And I have to tell people this all the time, that they say, oh, well, I was at the Zen Center and my teacher said that, and I say, I'm sorry, but you've walked into a situation where you're being pushed upon with New Age teachings repackaged in Asian themes and Asian clothing, and they're calling it Zen, but in fact, it's just New Age, New Thought teachings. Oh my goodness, how can you say that? They say it's Zen. They could say whatever they want, because I have no control over that. And that's not something I want to have control over. It's just that when people come and they criticize me, oh, you have no authority to speak. Who gave you permission? The permission comes from the Holy Buddha himself. You don't need permission to speak the truth about Buddhism, the Dharma, about what Zen is, because it's self-evident of what it is. It's only when you try to chase people away from what is self-evident and the truth, and then push them towards some paradigm, some scheming and plotting and idea that you hold that is not Zen, that's when, and you could tell, because it creates suffering. You go to a Zen center and you will see mostly the people are suffering. They're suffering to keep up. They're suffering to join. They're suffering to belong. They're suffering to be within the good graces of the Roshi. Oh, the Roshi, the head teacher, got to be in good graces with that guy, because, without his magic tap on the head, he won't be the teacher. I won't be nothing. I'll just be a zero, because again, they get you into the plotting and the scheming. They get you into the riding the roller coaster of their Zendo, and they get you into this idea that, well, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, and yeah, you'll be there 20, 30 years suffering, and then you start to wonder, this is crap, because 20, 30 years go down the road, and you're no better than the day you walked in. So that is the hallmark of radical Zen, is the immense amount of suffering that it creates. So what about the BQs? What about Zen BQs? Oh, they exist. It's just it was created illegal in Japan, and so that entire aspect fell away, at least within the Japanese context. It still exists within the Chinese context. But however, most Americans, because our culture, first of all, we don't have a state-sponsored religion. And it would become upon the parents and the families of individuals who want to be within the orders of Buddha. And it would take a commitment of those families, a financial commitment to help this. And then it would also take a community. It doesn't have to be a large community. I mean, just enough of a community to of dedicated bhikkhus and bhikkhunis to keep this together, to keep it going. Because doing it by yourself is hard. It helps if there are fellow bhikkhu sangha members, and just making it very clear that when the Buddha said the sangha, it's not everybody. The sangha is mostly referring to those that have taken the Buddha's orders. Those are those that are on the bhikkhu path. Laymen are associated to the sangha and are supporters of the sangha, but like I said, they would not be really deemed as sangha. That would be implying that they are bhikkhus, in which they are not. But again, it's those that are taking the path of the Buddha's orders. It is hard because you are required to abandon everything worldly, and it's like I said, without the support and without the bhikkhu sangha community, it becomes extremely difficult. I mean, the Buddha started, with his enlightenment, found fellow ascetics, and built from there. So it can be done. I'm just saying, though, that it's not something likely. So what about laymen? What are laymen then? I mean, laymen following Buddha's orders. I don't know. I mean, to me would seem like, what? Trying to be something that you can't be, because it's like saying that, I want to be a sailor, but only stay on dry land. Yeah, okay. Not quite sure how that works, but it's an oxymoron. I'm a pilot that never leaves the ground. We used to call this surface submariners. People those that were on the ship with their sub pins, but never went underwater. If you're going to walk the path, then walk the path. But it's like, can laymen be enlightenment? Of course they can. Anybody who truly renounces the plotting, the scheming, all the little conniving thoughts, all these little wheels within wheels, plans within plans, you are achieving the Zen enlightenment. And let's just make that very clear. This is the enlightenment of Zen, not the enlightenment of the Buddha. The Buddha's enlightenment is a far more profound and deeper, which is mostly relies upon the Eightfold Path. And there you're taking the Zen enlightenment into a further deeper and more resolved commitment of arhatship and of that of the bodhisattva. And it is the path of true transcendence, the path of true spiritual freedom, the path of truly ending one's merry-go-round ride in this world of suffering, this saha world, this existence that we currently find ourselves in. And for those of you who are where I'm at, which is, it's been fun, but I'm tired of it. You start to realize that if you're going to get serious about Zen, you got to start relinquishing all of these ideas, this plotting and this scheming, and all of this stuff, this garbage that you think is Zen, and start to realize that Zen is pure intuitive knowing. It is, and I said, how do you get to that? Abandon everything else, and then the intuitive comes. So this is the end of my talk. I hope some of you find some value out of it. For those who are starting on this path of Zen, I just beware of slick-talking roshis and lay monks and people who are going to try to tell you that Zen is a culture, a style, a political belief, a way of life, because that's only creates suffering. And those particular notions have already been renounced by the Buddha as only creating suffering. All right, everybody. Take care.